Hello, everybody. Here we are with the hottest show in town, the Vegas Dice Kings, with two of the hottest guys, Ralph Delegati in the middle and Johnny Law. He always laid down the law when he dealt craps. And don't forget our email, vegasdicekings22gmail.com. Johnny Law has an email, and Ralph, I'm sure they'll tell you. Listen, we also, without saying who it is, we have a special guest. We're all excited about it because they were right in the mix, just like we were, and it's going to be a wonderful segment. And so I'd like to start the show off with the fact that, you know, we've all been in the casino business a long time, but we all started as crap dealers, and how we broke in and how things were back then. Game protection, keep your eyes on the dice. You had to learn about the tools of the trade. That was most important. These things stayed with you from the time you broke in to whenever you retired. I'm still, as Johnny Law put, the lumpy is still in action. 49 years, and I'm just a lump.
Lumpy.
Yes. I get around the layout like an old war horse. Sometimes I have to stop in the middle because I hear the floorman brings the oil can. He said, somebody's squeaking. I go, is it me? But you know, you can't, the atmosphere of when you did table for table, the atmosphere, it was electric. Wherever you worked, whatever kind of money you made, the fact that you could go for yourself with 3 other dealers and you coordinated with them, whoever was the strongest, he decided where everyone was going to be, and you followed his lead. If you're working the several customers right there on your end, you're handing off come bets, you're personalizing the experience. Oh, Mr. B, yes. Oh, is this your wife? This is Mrs. B. Oh, don't you look lovely? You did whatever it took in order for you to personalize that experience so that they would be eating out of your hand. When the dice started passing, you wanted him to take advantage of the roll. See, don't be scared, Mr. B. This could be the moment, just like fishing. They're biting. And so, you know, and when the next dealer came in, he tried to pick up or would pick up right where you left off. These fellows will attest to it. Up and down the strip, table for table job was the most coveted job in town. Johnny Law said in a few segments before, you had 21 dealers, but they were lumped, there's that word again, together. So the incentive for them wasn't as much as a crap dealer, because you had 4 guys, and of course you included the boxman or the floorman if they were okay and they didn't bust your chops. Absolutely. And these guys, they know better than me. I mean, I was a newbie in '73, and the son of a crap dealer, so I tried to live up to what my dad would tell me about advice, you know. Treat everybody the same, whether they're a little player or big player. You don't want to stand out. You don't want to show favoritism to a player, even if he's a big player. If the guy's George or not, if he's a stiff, it doesn't matter. Do your job, a Bill Belichick moment. Just do your job so that you don't get an attitude, that you don't fluctuate with your attitude, up, down. If you make it that day, you gave it your best shot in 8 hours. The next day, you're going to get to come back and do it again, and maybe you're going to make a nice little score. You're going to be able to go to one of the many restaurants that Ralph and Johnny Law, the Flame, all kinds of other places, the Peppermill. You know, you take your date out, you don't have to take her to Wiener Schnitzel. You'll still relish the thought, though. So I'm going to turn it over to one of these two fellas because I wasn't here last week. I'm 70 years old. I'm exhausted. I'm tongue-tied. I think it's kind of swollen, and I'm going to let these guys go for it.
Ooh, can I go next? All right. Hey, welcome, everybody. So Danny mentioned our emails. We got the Vegas Dice Kings email, okay? And then I have my own, the Outlaw Croupier. I've started getting a couple emails already. For the Outlaw Croupier emails, I want them from like dealers, whoever inside the pit, some real stories. We're going to talk about it a little bit. I'm starting to get some of these in. So if you're going to email stuff to Vegas Dice Kings, it's basically for Ralph, okay? Ralph is a an Encyclopedia Britannica of Las Vegas history. I'm telling you, just in a short time I know him, I'm amazed. Okay, we talked about the book, Last Casino. I'm going to start referencing the book because this is the real deal. So I have stories, a couple today, that have to do with the book, all right? So anyways, don't forget, we have our 2 different emails, okay? We also have a fan club, all right? And I want to say a shout out to the president of our Florida chapter of the Vegas Dice King fan club, Mr. Al Riznick. Hey, Al, you're doing a great job, brother. Keep it up, all right? So, with regards to last week, I had mentioned that we got one email with regards to, a girl was asking about the landmark, and was I there when it was built and stuff, because she heard Ralph talking about it. The landmark is personal when it comes to Ralph. Now, I didn't see the landmark being built. I did see the Stratosphere. I think I got a picture there of me at the Stratosphere jumping up in the air. Listen, the stuff with 2 legs, way overrated. 1 leg, I have twice as many socks already. So, you know, there's a lot of good to it. So the girl that emailed about the landmark, it was just kind of being cool. You know, she brought up some stuff. So I had my buddies, since I was a little kid, Scott and Douglas were here a couple of weeks ago. We went out to dinner at top of the Stratosphere there. And I did a thing last week about then and now with the Spring Mountain Ranch and the plays. I went again about the plays then and now, but that got me thinking about when we were up top of the Stratosphere. I was telling my 2 buddies from back east, I remember being up in the landmark, but the scenery was a lot different then, huh? I mean, there was a lot of open spaces back then. I'll be talking to a couple people who dealt there. One of my very, very good, beautiful friends, Georgianne Fairbanks, her husband Terry Fairbanks. I worked with him at Bally's. Georgianne was a crap dealer. Georgianne was, she was like, she's old school. One of the best girl dealers I've ever known. So I used to go up there and would see her and stuff at the landmark. And then I want to talk a little about Ralph's book, all right? The more I read it, the more real stories pop into my mind. So what I'm talking about, one of these personal emails that I got from somebody, a dealer, telling his story back then. It had to do kind of with, and you've heard me talk before about my buddy Kenny Anderson. He's the one that like passed out dealing. They sat him on the box, and then he passed out on the box. It was at the Horseshoe, and Teddy told him to go home. He came back the next night, started all over. So in chapter 13, he has this, Ralph has a story in the book here about this player. There was a dealer, the guy's losing a ton of money, and the dealer's hustling him, all right? You know what I mean, asking for bet. Now he's being kind of aggressive. And the guy just gets up, he blows up, I can read it, you know, whatever, and ran out of there. Now, with regards to me, I kind of had a situation like that. So I was on the pole, Kenny Anderson's over here, the guy losing all the money is on this side. And the dealer then, I'm not going to say his name, was pretty hard hustling. The guy's losing a lot of money, and the guy did the same thing. I'm losing, you know, what do you want me to do? Kenny butts in, and Kenny said, so what's another couple hundred?
Oh my God.
And the guy started, and the guy tipped us all night. The guy never did win, but that's just how Kenny was. It's how we were, right? Danny knows what we're talking about with stuff like that. Also in Ralph's book, pretty interesting story we were just talking about being a supervisor in the pit. You know, your main objective is game protection. We've talked the last couple of weeks about game protection because of no more boxmen. I mean, which anybody in the business, it's really stupid. But if you understand why, it doesn't matter. You know, it comes down to politics of the owners of all these casinos. But we talked about he talked about a supervisor procedure. They got to protect markers back then. Markers were on paper back then, and you had a supervisor's job is to watch the bankroll on every table. The crap table has a ton of chips. The roulette has a lot of chips, but they're not cash value chips. You probably know what I mean with the roulette. And the 21 tables have a bunch of money on there. But I've seen many times where guys, especially a table full of guys betting and they're winning, run out of chips in a rack. You ever see that in a 21 game? So that's another responsibility of the supervisor back then. And going back to no boxman. So what was once a tough job itself, now in these dice pits, you have one floorman, one supervisor, watching 2 games with all that. And another thing that we talked about with the no boxman that I never mentioned, how much downtime there is. So after somebody rolls, they call it a hand, where somebody rolled a whole bunch of winners. Now everybody has a big pile of chips, but you don't leave the table. You cash them in for a higher denomination. And the amount, I've seen a hand over almost a half hour one time, just because there's no boxman. You got to do it all yourself. It doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? And Ralph knows exactly what I'm talking about. So with regards to that, that was in the book there.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Go quickly. You mentioned the rack would go empty. I remember, I don't know if they still do this, but if a guy was playing and he started out with greens and he got lucky and he was all pumped up with greens, and you're dealing some blacks on the table, if the dealer starts to convert some of the payoffs to blacks, and the bosses, whoever was responsible, like a pit supervisor or floorman or sometimes even a boxman, if they saw the guy go to his pocket with the blacks, they would tell you, keep him in greens. Don't give him any blacks. Leave him in greens because he's going south with the blacks. If you leave him in greens, he'll probably play them and blow them back, but the blacks are going to stay there and go to the cage. So he said they would tell you, they tap you, say keep them in greens till I tell you otherwise.
So like Ralph said, Ralph used the term going south. There's a lot of things that happen on a game, good and bad, with going south. Yeah. I've seen dealers arrested on the game for going south with some money. So, real quick, I'm going to go back. Danny talked about, I had mentioned crap dealers, and I'm going to have more on this next week, about crap dealers are psychologists, mathematician, and an actor. But when Danny was talking, I'm thinking, what 3 people make up a crap dealer? So the 3 I came up with, Eddie Haskell, Abby Hoffman, and Clint Eastwood. You put them 3 guys into one person, that was me, Danny, Ralph. That's how cool we were. All right. Anyway, so now going back to the protection I talked about. All right, on a 21 game, is the shoe, the box that holds all them cards, all right? I'm going to go back to that for a couple seconds, but the big thing that they were looking for is people, a dealer and a supervisor, just them 2 are in it, in a way that they can take these cards off and put the new cards on. And there's 8 decks of a choreographed winning cycle that's hard to catch, and it only takes 1 second. So I'm going to talk about somebody who sent me an email. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But that's the shoe. That's the big shoe that we're talking about. Professional blackjack players would like single deck naturally, handheld or double deck. The eight deck shoes are a little bit tougher, but they can still do it.
Absolutely.
Rolf will vouch for that, you know, when it
Absolutely.
comes to that type of security.
I can do it.
And guys would have different ways when they would switch these shoes out. There were different ways to do it. They would spill a drink on this side of the table, and just that 1 second, a guy would throw a bunch of cash on the table, change only, whatever you're doing this here, and boom, this takes 1 second. Have a hot chick on the game, you know, with her breasts out and everything like that. This really happened. This is how it happened. So I worked at the Golden Nugget for 9 days. So the guy who got me in there was over at the Fremont back when I was a busboy. But when I was at, part of the reason I got fired, because this boss, they did that. You remember that at the Golden Nugget? I was working there, and I didn't get involved with him. With the ceiling or nothing that happened, but just the fact that he's the one that gave me the job. So, and we're going to talk about that in a couple of seconds too. So, what I want to talk about, I got an email from, and this is what I'm looking, this kid Mark Riggins. I worked with Mark Riggins in 80, 81, 82 when I was working at the Sahara, and he was a 21 dealer. And he was talking about when his dad was a big boss, Ponzi. His dad was a big boss. Mark said that when he taught himself, he had somebody help him in the guy's garage with chips and stuff, and he started at the Sahara and never had any experience. But you heard me talk about the other guy. Well, we wanted this so bad, and we got it. We wanted it that bad. So anyways, Mark did that. He went to Sahara and got Sahara. So he texted me a story. He was at the El Rancho. Okay, this is back when Ed Toys had it. He was at the El Rancho, and there's a guy 21 player, beating the house like 3 days in a row. Mark said he was off him 2 days. On the third day, they knew Mark was a pretty good dealer. They put Mark on the game. Now, they thought, you know, magic would happen. Mark was on there, and the guy kept winning. Mark got nervous, knocked the shoe on the ground. So I just talked about how, you know, cheating, this is all indirectly, but when they, for some reason, because Mark said, John, he said, boss, Mike, I forget his last name, he was shift boss. He told Mark, he said, listen, if this guy wins any more money, Ed Torres is going to fire the whole shift, everybody. And they did that, right? I told you, you get fired for nothing, all right, for being Italian down the horseshoe. Anyways, so luckily, when they put the new shoe on, Mark just couldn't lose. And he didn't get all the money back, but he got a majority of it back. And Mark told me, he said, this was out of all these people and everything, he said just him and this other boss were the only two people that knew how close everybody came to get fired. And he said it was years before he ever talked to anybody about that. So that was one story of Mark. And then, well, I worked with him at the Sahara, right? Sahara was my first spot for table for table. I wasn't that strong at the Sahara. I was strong after the Sahara. All right, but at the Sahara, everything was good. This is when, so Mark's dad was a boss. He worked with me at the Sahara around 80, 81, 82. His dad got sick, went home, Nashville. That's where Mark's at now. He went back home for his dad's funeral and stuff. His dad passed. And he said when he came to town, It was his very first day, and he was going downtown to do something. He said he parked at the Horseshoe, and back then at the Horseshoe, where the cashier is, a little time clock. You just punch your parking ticket. Mark had been gone about a year and a half. He's in the Horseshoe, hit his ticket, and he knew this guy who was a boss, turned out to be the shift boss. Mark, the guy says, "What are you doing?" He just said, "Well, I just got back in town." He said, "You need a job?" He started the next day at noon from punching his ticket. Okay, that's how it used to happen back then. So anyway, Mark was allowed to hang around with us crap dealers. He called it. He was honored to be part of the inner sanctum of crap dealers, because we had our own area where we sat down at dinner. We just, like I said, and this was all happening at the Mark I. I lived in that Mark I over on DI and Maryland Parkway. I mean, we did a lot of stuff there. We would go days at a time without even leaving. And if we did go to the store, right down the corner was that Alpha Beta, but we were next to the country club. You would see all the people that lived in, I saw Spilatro, Jerry Lewis, Greg Morris, the guy from Mission Impossible.
Don't forget the view of Davy's Locker.
View of Davy's Locker, that's right. These places used to have one hell of a view, right?
You're a bad guy.
He's a freaking lumpy. Don't listen to him. All right. Anyways, when I was at the got high with Dana Plato. You remember her? She ended up getting arrested. She robbed a video store. She was working at L. Phillips there. She's God bless her. She was so cute. But in our building, Mary Langston. Who's Mary Langston? The unknown comic?
Yeah.
But, whoops, excuse me. Freaking dynamite. He was dynamite. I got a whole bunch of stories just with him in conversations at the Mark I there. And there was a lot of people coming in and out. He was good friends with Red Fox. Years later, when I got into real estate, I sold Red Fox's house 2 times. He married a cocktail waitress from Bally's. My wife was a cocktail waitress at Bally's. My wife and I, when we planned our wedding, it was supposed to be up at the top of the dunes. It's like 90 days away. They told us, "Hey, we're going to blow the place up. You got to find another place." So we had to go over to the Crown Plaza. But we had, I had the Flying Elvises parachute into my thing. We had a singer. We had a stand-up comic. I'll talk about the wedding when we were on national TV. It was pretty cool. Anyways, we were living back there at the Mark I, and life was good. And so going back to, I went to another play out of Spring Mountain Ranch. You got my email. You guys want volunteer out there? It's a great night, nice and cool. See a play. Next month is Sister Act. I went to a meeting at Allegiant Stadium getting ready for the football season. My supervisors told me, anybody wants a job. So you got my email, Outlaw Croupier at AOL. You want to work at the stadium with the Raiders and the concerts and stuff? Go ahead and get hold of me, and I'll turn you on to the right people and get you a job at the stadium. So basically, anybody got any input about all my crap?
No, I got a quick story that Dan said something about talking to the players' wives and trying to service the players' wives, because if the wives liked the place, they would make a husband come back to their favorite place. So it was always smart to entertain the wives. So when Julie Weintraub used to come in from New York, most of his guys were crap shooters, and the wives used to get together and take a whole blackjack game.
Right.
They take the whole table and play blackjack. So I was in the blackjack for a while, and I would kid around with them and go up to the table, and while they were playing, the dealer would turn ahead and turn up his whole card, and I would go up and flip it and show them the dealer's whole card.
You could do it back then.
Oh yeah, you could do all kinds of stuff.
Right.
I'll tell you a Red Fox story. You won't believe that I was able to do this stuff I did. But Anyway, I would flip it, and they would look, and they would be shocked for a minute, and they wouldn't know what to do, you know. And then I'd say, and then I'd flip it again and flip it again, you know. And so there was this one woman. Her husband was a friend of mine from New York. He was a lawyer attorney, and she had the dealer's got a paint, and he turned a card over, a picture card, and you turn the card over, and he's got a picture card, and she's got a 10 and an 8. And it gets to her, and she says, you know, she goes like this, and I said, Mrs. So-and-so, I said, you know, take a look. and I said, he's got 20. She said, Ralph, my husband will kill me if he hears I hit an 18. So I said, well, you're going to have to get killed because you got to hit it. Of course, she hit it and got busted, and she said, please don't tell my husband I hit 18. I said, I won't tell him.
I've actually seen other times like exactly what he's talking about. Yeah. And I think one time it was a 19. The player was less combative, but you know, so hey, real quick trivia with Unknown Comic, all right? He is the first comedian to have an all-comedy show, because comedians opened for Sinatra, all these people. Mary Langston, Unknown Comic, he was the first one to do an all-comedy show, and he worked with, well, like I said, he worked with Red Fox. Elaine Boozler, I always liked her. She was pretty funny. So, anyways, we're going to go ahead and take a break now, pay a few bills. But like Danny said, we got a special guest, all right? You want to be here, all right?
I'm so excited, my lips are quivering.
All right? Ralph's the only one. This is Ralph's secret, so we're sworn to secrecy. Anyways, hey, don't go nowhere. This is going to be good. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Judy, I really want to thank you for asking me to come down to Laughlin with you to the Florida Di Greco's Fine Art Gallery. I was blown away. I could not believe the size of that place and the amount of art that they had there. And you are now hanging some of your art there, right?
Yes, well, you know, you helped me hang it.
Duh.
Yeah, it's absolutely a beautiful gallery. And she's got over 70 artists, incredible art, everything from realism to abstract to stained glass to sculptures. It's just amazing, all the different kinds of art that she has there in that one gallery. And who would expect to find that in Laughlin, Nevada?
I never would have thought that.
When I was first told about it, they said, oh, you've got to go see the art gallery in Laughlin. I was like, oh yeah, sure. And then I got there, and it was absolutely beautiful. And there's such an array, such a choice of the kinds of art that are there, that if you were looking for something for your home or your office, you would find it.
I couldn't believe the diversity of art that she has there. Like you say, there's sculptures, there's paintings, there's
jewelry,
just you name it, she's got it. And she is such a sweetheart. I really, really enjoyed meeting her and got the little tour, and yeah, that was awesome. And like you said, it's what, hour and 10 minutes down southeast of here in Las Vegas?
Yeah, it makes a nice day trip.
Oh yeah, and it's just to get out of town. I mean, it's too bad that we had to be back so soon.
Yes.
I could have spent the whole day there just walking around looking at the stuff.
Right.
So anyway.
And it's right on the river.
Yes. I can't believe how Laughlin has grown, and to have an art gallery like that, that's amazing.
It is amazing.
So guys, if you get a chance, take a couple hours, drive down to Laughlin to the big giant mall they've got there now, and check out Florida Di Greco's Fine Art Gallery. The information is on your screen. Thank you.
Pam, hello, how are you? I'm so happy that you're with us. It's a pleasure to see you, and I feel like we're old friends, and thanks for coming on. We're looking forward to getting a showgirl's viewpoint of the old days in Vegas, and I know you've got a lot of stories to tell it. So welcome, Pam.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I hope I have some interesting stories somewhere along the way.
Oh, I have no doubt you will, and it'll be just fun to look and have you with us anyway, so we can talk a little bit. I haven't had a chance to talk to you in a while, so it's really good to see you again. You've got to write your book pretty soon. I hope you're going to finish your book soon. I hope.
Well, I read your book. I was very impressed, and it's for me as well. Living in Vegas from the age of 5, I moved there in 1955 from Utah, into a Mormon community, and the early history is just so radical from the Vegas with your backdrop there of the New York hotel and how Vegas is today. We never would have fathomed Vegas would ever look like how
Without
it
a
is
doubt.
today.
Where did you graduate high school, Pam?
Rancho High School, which is no longer there. They demolished it,
Yep.
and it's a beautiful brand new school now.
Yeah.
Like they demolish everything.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Right.
That's right. It's amazing. A couple of weeks ago, I put a photo on that showed the Las Vegas Strip in 1959. It was a photo that was taken from a helicopter.
Yes, I saw that.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you see that?
Yes.
And it looked like a T. As far as coming over the mountain from Lake Mead, all you saw was a T's light, and everything else was
Yeah.
black. Now the whole area is all lit up when you come over the mountain. But at that time, it was just a T, the Strip and downtown, and that was all there was. So it sure has changed a lot, hasn't it?
Well, you would see spaces between the properties. Matter of fact, large spaces
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
And now everything is like so squeezed in, and wherever there's a hotel, it's this mega gigantic, like what's behind you there.
Well, I used to ride horseback between the casinos. You could gallop on the desert. We'd leave one casino, and you'd gallop for like half a mile or almost a mile before you got to the next casino, and you go around the back, and then you had another half a mile of nothing but desert before you got to the next casino. Now you haven't got
I
an
had a
inch.
horse as well. My horse was Sparky. It was a gelding, and I kept it on the other side of the airport. And the guy worked for a Pacific Gas and Electric Company, that kind of a thing, and he took really good care of the horses. And a number of us show people and dealers or whatever kept our horses there, and then we would ride them past Wayne Newton's ranch to the golf course and have lunch and watch maybe some horse show, and then ride back. And it was wonderful because it was all so easy to get to, and before you know it, you're feeling like you're in one of those Western movies with the canyons and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
When's the last time you were in town?
I was just there, what's it, the week before last.
Oh, okay.
She's got Vegas in her heart. She gets to Vegas as often as she can, right?
Oh, yeah. Usually I would go every 3 months, and then towards the past 12 years, so many people that I know were getting ill and dying, so then I
I'm
was
sorry to
there
hear
to help
that.
them. So I would come almost every month.
Yeah, sorry to hear it. That's a tough
And
reason.
COVID is the longest I've ever gone. I went 1 year where I didn't go to Vegas. That was really withdrawal symptoms because
Yeah,
I have
right.
to go to Vegas.
Well, one of these days you're going to have to tell me you're coming and we'll have lunch or something.
Yeah, the reason why I went this time is I thought, do I really want to go in June? But 3 friends were coming from different places, and I was just so busy with meeting with them. I thought I could barely fit in the time with the people,
Yeah,
So, but I
yeah.
will do that, Ralph. You bet.
Okay. Danny has a question for you, Pam.
Pam, I have some different cards that show the events that they had at the Stardust. And one of them was a picture of Valerie Perrine, who became an actress. And I don't know if you worked with her, but she was a showgirl at the Stardust. And and I just wanted to ask you if you knew her.
Well, I'm going to talk briefly on her and on another famous person that left Vegas, and that is Cassandra Peterson, who became Elvira. And she just wrote her book, and this is it. It's really quite a varied.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And
How about that?
also another friend of mine, Carolyn Hamilton, she wrote on just 3 years working as a cocktail waitress at the MGM, now Bally's, and she's my writing coach to help me write my book presently.
Wow.
And so anyway, Valerie Perrine, she was in the show before me, and then when I came to the show, she was gone, and she'd already gone to Hollywood to make Superman and be in that.
Yeah.
But there was a lady who was also in the show with me. She was a French woman, and she became Valerie's assistant. And then it turned out down the road that she was stealing her money. So then she, of course, lost her position and all that. But yeah, there's a few people that went on from being showgirls to becoming, you know, going up the ladder, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
So which show were you with, Lido, then?
Well, the way it all happened is I was working in the Boulevard Mall in the men's department of diamonds. And why they would put a 17-year-old girl in the men's department is beyond me. I'm 5'10", and all my life, it's been hard to find a nice, good-natured man. He has to be tall. And so many tall men choose really short wives, and the short women go after the tall men. And so I go to dances and I sit out dances. Nobody's dancing with me. And all of a sudden I'm in the men's department, and Frederick Apgar, the producer of the Casino de Paris, and Sandro Dornini, his assistant, came in, and they were making conversation with me that, oh, you're tall and you're pretty and you could be a showgirl, and I don't even know what that means. So they gave me their cards and left. And when I went home, I shared it with my sister, 11 months younger than me, Paula, and she gave me the gumption to let's go look into this.
How old were you, Pam? How old were
Going
you?
down the strip, we rented to the Stardust before the Dunes, and well, let's stop there. Let's look into this. So we went into the Lido show, and they were rehearsing a new show, and they had Don Arden there, Bluebell was there, all the show people, and they put the two of us on the stage, scared as could be, not knowing what world we'd entered into,
How
and the
about that?
choreographer put us through a bunch of moves. Well, I had taken dance lessons. My sister never showed an interest in dance, and so they chose me. We went further down the strip to the Dunes, and sure enough, I see Pat McKegney, and she's rehearsing a girl, and she looks at both of us and sees how we move, and she chose me. And the Dunes kept calling, and my mom wouldn't sign the document to let me go on the show. She was afraid what would happen to me. And 2 weeks after I turned 18, I was in the Dunes Viva Les Girls.
Pam, how old were you at this time when this happened?
2 weeks after I turned 18. And I was sitting next to Cassandra Peterson, and of course later on Cassandra left to become Elvira in Hollywood.
Did they have girls under 18 at that time on the show? Did they
Yes,
allow
they
'em?
did. When I went over, then within about 6 months, I went over to the big showroom, the Casino de Paris show, and I met other show people. And they say they're French shows, but most of the dancers, male and female, come from England.
Yeah, okay.
And many of them, some of them were recruited in France and England as young as, 16, 17.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah. Well,
And it
tell
used
us,
to be before I became a showgirl, they would ask the showgirls to mingle. I was never asked to ever mingle with anybody. Once we were done with the show, the time was our own.
yeah, a lot of the girls did that, but I remember at the Sahara when I first went to work there, the showgirls had to sit in the lounge between the first and the second show. Did you ever hear about that?
There would still be girls that would do that because, what else could you do between shows?
No,
And
they
so
were told they
would
had to.
often do
They were
that.
told they had to. It was part of the deal. They
Well,
had to
thank
sit in the
goodness that
lounge
when I
between
went in the
shows.
show, it was 1968, and that was not, if that would have been a requirement, I would never have accepted that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was,
When I
something.
went in the show, you got it 2 days off a month if someone wasn't sick. If someone's sick, they're going to call you to come back in. I went 8 months without a day off.
No kidding. Wow. That's
When I
pretty
first
tough.
went in.
That's pretty tough. Without
It was,
one day
and,
off and all that time?
Not one day off, because every time they called me on my days off, I felt I should show loyalty. I was young, I was healthy, I wasn't getting sick, and I thought, well, what else is there to do anyway? I have a lot of free time. This is a wonderful thing to do, and to be in. One time I went to the show was the Lido de Paris. By that time, I was in the Lido twice and Casino de Paris twice. My favorite show was Hallelujah Hollywood. And some of the girls said, "You don't look very good." And I said, "I know, I don't feel very good." And they touched my head. Somebody said, "I've got a thermometer." So they took my temperature. I have 103, and I showed up at work.
Wow.
I just loved working.
Well, yeah. You retired when? What year did you retire? How long did you work in the shows?
By January of 1980, I was in Los Angeles. I got my degree in hotel administration from UNLV. I've been Miss Nevada 4 times. I had my own retail store. I was on Frank Rosenthal's show. I did real estate for 4 years. I had so many different irons in the fire because Vegas is 24/7. I helped my boyfriend from a warehouse to 5 major shops and major hotels. In order to be with him, I had to help him build his business. And so we did a lot of traveling around the world. And then I was with Governor Michael Callahan promoting tourism to Reno, Las Vegas, and San Diego. And we went on that travel mission.
I got one other question for you, Pam. How much time did you spend with the Rosenthal show, on the Rosenthal show? Any time at all?
Very little, but it's amazing. Different people have approached me to do my book, and with that is the whole emphasis. And I think, well, I'm doing my book, but that is just a little teeny sliver of my time was spent. Frank Rosenthal, he was involved in the Stardust Lido Day Prix, so you couldn't help but know him. And then a number of my show business friends that were the principals, they had to hang with him and go out to restaurants with him. And after the show, he would ask them, and I guess he must have made it a requirement because they always did. And so when Paul Anka's Jubilation, when he decided to carry on his show there versus doing it in the sports book at the Stardust, then he asked me if I would be his assistant or his, sidekick, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think a friend of mine taped 3 videos. And then after that, it was done in a studio. We did 2 studio things. And then after that, he didn't have an assistant anymore.
There's a picture I've seen of you with Lefty, and that kind of goes around a little bit. I've seen it a couple of times on Facebook. Are you aware of that picture? I think it's with you and somebody else.
There's a couple of pictures with, it was Gene Cimarelli and
Yes.
Frank Rosenthal's birthday.
Yes.
And I have a copyright on 2 art projects that I was selling in a kiosk in the MGM because I couldn't help but get involved in business a lot more myself with having a business boyfriend. And so I gave them these Zodiac certificates that are my copyright as a birthday present. So the pictures are myself posed with him and Gene Cimarelli,
Yes.
and then sometimes the part of the cast in the show.
Yeah, okay, because that's the one I was talking about with Gene Cimarelli. I forgot to mention him, but
Yeah.
I knew him in the old days. He's, I think he was a host more than a casino man, wasn't he?
I don't know all the details. He
Yeah,
just
I'm pretty
was
sure.
always a very affable man, and I heard
Yes.
something that he was involved with the station casinos. I don't know to what extent.
Sharp
I know that-
dresser, too. Sharp dresser.
Frank, yeah, very sharp. Both of them were. Frank Rosenthal was very gentlemanly. He never, I worked many jobs, and everywhere I ever worked, there was the Me Too thing. If there was a man on that job, one of those men in that job are putting the moves on me.
Yeah.
It was terrible. Every job I had working in, Montgomery wards or whatever, if there's a male working anywhere there, one of them's going to put some moves on me. There was a situation that happened with Bill Cosby, and thank goodness I didn't say yes to going to a party.
Yeah.
I was with my girlfriend and I, we were just 19 years old, and I thought that she had comped us to see Bill Cosby's show through a baccarat boss she said that her family knew. And we're sitting ringside, and Bill Cosby included us in his act. And then after it's done, this gentleman came to us and said, "Mr. Cosby would like to invite you backstage." And we thought, oh, that's wonderful. But it turns out that we have to pay the check. We thought it was comped. And, I didn't have a credit card back then. It was really embarrassing. And so the guy left, and then he comes back. He says, "Mr. Cosby has picked up your tab." So we thought we have to go backstage and thank him. So he's taking us to the kitchen because it was the Hilton Hotel, and we got to this little suite thing, and Mr. Cosby is there wearing like a professorial hat with a pipe, and his wife was next to him, and she had all of her hair. She was very pretty. And on the couch was Flip Wilson, Little Anthony of Little Anthony and the Imperials, and James Brown. I mean, it just was a trip. And I'd already seen them perform, and Little Richard and all that, and the Platters, because you just could see these entertainers all the time. So, but they were really smashed on the couch. They were like, and so then we're making small talk. We're 19. We're very naive. Mr. Cosby's very professorial. And we say, well, it's late. We have to go now, but thank you so much, Mr. Cosby. And he said, well, the guy that showed you here is gone. Let me show you where the elevators are. So he went to the kitchen, and we get to the elevators, and he says, do you want to go to a party? And we said, well, when? He said, well, right now. We just go up the elevators and go to my suite, and there's going to be a party there. And I thought it's odd that he just left his wife and those 3 notables in his suite, and he's inviting us to a party. And we said, thank you, but no thank you, we have to get home. And all those years, I was always wondering, why did he do that? And then,
well, now you know. Now you know. You know what's something about the fact about the way you girls were treated? Nobody ever realized how young a lot of you were. And they treated you, I think, like you'd been around a lot more. You were older types, if you know what I mean. And a lot of you girls were just doing a job and going home to your family or your mother and father or whatever. But they were treating you like adult women that had been around a long time. You know what I mean?
well, no, I think, Ralph, what you're talking about is those earlier showgirls, because you were, you precede me a little bit here. And in the fact that when I came into the shows, I was never put upon to do anything by anyone. And finally, I kind of left that world because a lot of the guys in the show were gay, and the producers and that were not having anything to do with us, really. They were managing the shows. And I would show up, do the shows, and do whatever I wanted between shows, and do whatever I wanted before and after the shows. And later on, when I had my resume, I left Hallelujah Hollywood to work the front desk. And I still look back on that and think, how could I have left the most wonderful show to work the boring front desk? And I thought, well, I've done this for over 10 years, and I have my degree, and I want to get into hotel management. And shortly after I was on that front desk, I was hired to be the first female convention coordinator at the Aladdin. And as soon as I got there, right away, here's these male guys that are, trying to put the moves on again.
Yeah. Well, you're a beautiful woman, and so of course they're going to be chasing you around. I don't blame them. But I was just curious about that because I know there was so many. I was young myself when I first went to work on the Strip. I had just barely turned 22, and I met some of the girls at the Sahara. And they were just puppies, they were like you were, 19, 18, 19, and they were innocents, they were kids. And they weren't treated that way. They weren't treated that way. In fact, like I said, the Sahara, they had to stay in the lounge and be like shills, to attract men between shows. They weren't allowed to go. They could eat somewhere, but then they had to be in the lounge for, what is it, an hour and a half at least.
When I went into the show, I remember when, the Casino de Paris and Viva la Girls, I'm the youngest one. And I know that's not going to last very long, but it felt very exciting to be the youngest one. And then there were some seasoned ones. One was a kind of a mistress to Salvador Dali. She invited me to her apartment, and she had a stuffed zebra. She had a dark room. She was into photography. She was very intriguing and an artist in her own right. She had amazing photographs of her tours in Africa and going on safari with Salvador Dali. And then some other ones seemed to work for the house, that a maitre d' would maybe, because I was so naive about stuff, and they would tell me things, and, you won't be able to handle that. The maitre d' will show a man to us, point us out, and he'll choose which one he wants, and then the house pays us to be with them. So there'd be a couple of girls that were older that were working for the house.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, go ahead.
Pam, did you take any of the nightlife, like the Pussycat a Go-Go or the Fog Cutter that was over there off Paradise next to Feynman's Market? And because where were the girls going to go? I mean, there was only so many. There wasn't that many nightclubs. There was the Crown Room at the Hilton, and Flamingo had the Speakeasy, and there was a few places, but not many. And I met a lot of showgirls in those places.
With regards to the bars around town and stuff, I told a story a couple of weeks ago about one girl I dated. She was at the Lido with when Siegfried and Roy were there. But what I'm saying is, do you remember Alias Smith and Jones?
Yeah.
I like that. There was always a couple showgirls there. But like what Ralph was saying, I mean, when I first went out with a showgirl, it was like, wow, you know. I guess that's how 21 dealers felt about us.
That's how
crap
everybody
dealers.
felt that day.
Yeah.
The showgirl, it was like the epitome, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was,
like, sure.
you know.
Well, I was friends with Cassandra. I helped her move. I was a busboy at the Dunes in the Savoy Room. My dad was a crap dealer there for 15 years, and I worked there in '67. And the first time I saw Showbreak, the busboy says, "You're going to love Showbreak." I go, "What? Showbreak what?" And here comes all of these dancers, all the girls. They had their robes on, but they had their costume, and of course the fellas. I didn't pay any attention to them, but it was amazing. And I met Cassandra. She was from Kansas, and she had red hair, and I helped her move a couple of times, and a few other things. But it was amazing. Just Showbreak. I couldn't wait for Showbreak. I love Showbreak. And I met Miss Lean Renault, you know, and Rovan.
I was in the show with both of them, and everything you're mentioning brings back a lot of memories. The Fog Cutter, the Pussycat A Go-Go, of course, was the first in the middle of the strip, and then you know, there was the downtown place to go, like the Carouseller, you know, for dancing. And so when I went to the Pussycat, they would have a live band, and then they'd play disco music or, you know, music in
Yes.
between the acts. And so, you know, you want to sit ringside around the dance floor.
Yes.
And I can't help but feel that I must have met you or known you in some way, because everything you're mentioning where you hung out is where I hung out. Because what else was there to do? When you
Exactly.
finished the show, a lot of show people were married. They would go home to their families. And so they had this normal life that they led, just like anybody else. But then a few of us, like even though I went to the college during the day and I was carrying a full credit hour load and helping my boyfriend in his business, he just knew to, you know, meet me after the show. We're going to go dancing in these different places. And Jim Morrison of the Doors one night was in the Pussycat A Go-Go.
Yes.
And they stayed up until 8 in the morning. We would go to the Flame for breakfast. Can you imagine staying in a nightclub till 8 in the morning? So we would
Yes.
sometimes leave around 6, go to the Flame. But Jim Morrison showed up, and we all got in a circle and put our arms around each other, you know, a hippie kind of a time. And we were leaning, you know, but he was as drunk as could be at the microphone. And about 2 years after that, he died.
Yes.
Wow.
You go dancing at the brewery ever?
Oh, yes. Dirty Sally's, the brewery, all of those were great places.
Jubilation, Shark Club, all that stuff, that was fun.
Well, Jubilation was the best. Boy, Paul Anka really created finally the most ultimate. Now, some of the guys, Jeffrey and Rudy, were behind Dirty Sally's and what's the other one? Billy Jack's. And
Yes.
when I moved to Los Angeles and I went to Redondo Beach, there's Annabelle's, and they had started Annabelle. So it was nice to run into my Vegas friends that had started those nightclubs in Vegas, had now Annabelle's for me to go to in Redondo Beach.
I remember those
But
fellas.
I was used to everything happening at 2. So when I first moved to Los Angeles in January of 1980, to be a director of sales for Renaissance Hotel Management that had L'Hermitage, Le Parc, Le Bel Lage, La Mandarine hotels. I drove every month to Las Vegas, leaving at 9:30 and arriving at 2 and dancing.
I think I ran into you at Joseph Magnum's.
So I did a lot of shopping at J. Magnon's in the early 70s.
Yes, it was right in front of the Desert Inn.
Yeah, and then it closed.
Yes, sadly.
Everything closed. That's too bad.
I think I might have danced with you, Pam, once or twice.
I betcha. Because you know, it was the other thing too is that Vegas is such a small town, and I know that some guys thought are you a lesbian or something? Because you never leave with anyone. And I just didn't want everyone to know my story. I had kind of high hopes for myself that maybe eventually I will meet somebody and I want to get married and have children. And so the guy that I had been with from 20 till 28, we ended up being friends for 47 years. He just passed away 3 years ago. And but I knew he was not capturable, and he could not have children, and so that's why I ended it to move on to. I didn't get married though till I was 36, and then I had my first child at 38.
Wow.
How about that? How about
Because
that?
in Vegas, I just wanted to do it all.
Yeah,
And you did.
yeah,
Congratulations
Almost.
on a beautiful life
Yeah.
to this point.
yeah.
A lot of things came my way, and when Frank Rosenthal was looking for an assistant, I went over to him. I must say, I was a little assertive, and I sat next to him and I said, I hear you're looking for an assistant. And he was interviewing this one girl that was on a radio show. She had long blonde hair. And I said, for what it's worth, I'm in the show, as you know, and I was Miss Nevada and blah, blah, blah. And then he said, well, let me interview you. So he interviewed me by the Aku Aku, and he just asked me just a couple of questions. And then he told me, okay, I'm choosing you. And I said, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? And he said, just show up. And when I showed up, he never told me at all what to do. I was just there. Not any guidelines, how the show's going to be, what he wants me to do. So that was pretty scary that here he told me to wear whatever I wanted, just show up. He said, just be you.
How about that? How about that? No rehearsals, no nothing.
Nothing, no guidelines in the slightest. He said, just be you.
Okay.
So
Pam,
that was,
we know that you have something to do at 2, so I'm not going to tie you up any longer, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and helping us out today. It's a pleasure having you, and I really thank you very much, Pam.
well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure too. Take care, everybody.
Okay, bye.
She's got to come back.
Bye,
Yeah,
Pam.
yeah.
Bye,
We'll see
Pam.
you again.
We'll see you again, hopefully, Pam. Thank you. Hey,
All
good
righty,
luck with your
bye-bye.
book. And you know, if anything you run into a block, writer's block, just give me a shout. I'll get you out of it.
Oh, thank you. That's almost a daily experience. Thank you so much,
Au
Ralph.
revoir, Shetty.
You
Bye,
gotta take
bye,
care.
Au
bye,
revoir.
Pamela. Bye. Thank
Everybody else, we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.